Hey there, and welcome to Time to Lean, the podcast where you air your dirty laundry and we help you clean up your shit. I'm Crystal Britt.
And I'm Laura Danger. Think of us as your household secret weapon, taking your questions and voicemails to navigate the wild world of gender norms and household dynamics.
We dive headfirst into the nitty-gritty of how broader social issues impact our everyday lives.
So don't be shy, send us your dirty laundry.
And we'll help you clean up your shit.
This is Time to Lean.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Time to Lean. We're so excited to dive into stuff with you. It's been a wild week for gender essentialism and domestic equity.
And the media landscape, the
media
and entertainment.
Landscape, yeah. Like so much. We had to pick. We had to choose what to pick to talk about today in terms of pop culture. What are we going to talk about today, Laura? Would you intro it for us?
About the comedian Matt Rife, who is a self-proclaimed too pretty to be taken seriously. It's really hard to be an attractive white man. It's just really hard.
So yeah, it's really hard.
So he, from what I understand, I've seen his face on TikTok as doing crowd work. He's been in comedy for a while. He was on Wild 'N Out for a while. And then he just started getting kind of popular on TikTok because of his crowd work, and little clips would go viral of him. I don't think a lot of people had actually seen his like jokes that he had written. And then Netflix gave him a huge special, and he made, I heard one estimate of $20 million last year. Like, he made a ton of money off of this, and his audience was majority women. And all of them felt betrayed by the, I think, opening joke in the special, correct?
I don't know if it was the opening joke. I haven't watched it. It would not surprise me if it was the opener. Yeah, because he was, similar to what you're saying, he was doing a little bit of crowd work of like, I'm just feeling you guys out, like seeing what kind of night we're going to have. But I also didn't see that Wild 'N Out clip, which is wild. If you have not seen it, you should go watch it.
No,
until this happened. Oh, the Wild 'N Out clip?
No,
I'm not. So do you want me to pull it up or do you want me to just describe it?
You can describe it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I never watched Wild 'N Out when it was here, like when it was like airing. So they're doing some sort of like battle, it's like I don't know if it's a rap battle or a joke battle, but Zendaya is like going up against somebody else. It's not Matt Rife. She says something. Matt Rife shoots back from behind that person who's supposed to be competing, and says something like a burn or something. She reacts, and then he gets closer to her, and 4 of Zendaya's teammates, all of whom are black men, step forward because she backs up and she's like, "You need like what?" And those 4 black men come up and argue, you need to get away from her. You need to back up. It got tense immediately. And it was similar thing of like, it's just a joke. It's just a joke. And he backs up. But yeah, it was real fucked. I was like, what is this? I had no idea. Like, who is this?
What a really messy, complicated, and weird situation to put her in. I had heard in comment sections, people were like, he really did her wrong on that stage, but I had not heard about that. To get
it was a huge ick.
I don't like that.
No.
This is the joke.
I've only been to Baltimore one time. I ate lunch there, and the hostess who like seats you at the restaurant had a black eye. A full black eye. And it wasn't like, what happened? It was pretty obvious what happened. And we couldn't get over the fact that we're like, this is the face of the company? Like, this is where you have greeting people? And my boy who I was with was like, yeah, I feel bad for her, man. I feel like they should put her in the kitchen or something where nobody has to see her face, And I was like, yeah, but I feel like if she could cook, she wouldn't have that black eye. So...
And then he goes on to say, like, now that I got that out of the way, we're going to see if you're going to be any fun for the audience. How much of that laughter do you think was added after the fact?
Oh, that's interesting. My brain just assumes everything I see on the internet or on specials is real. So that's a really good question. That's a great
Yeah,
question.
because that was like a ruckus. That was quite the laughter, but
And it
no.
was like cuz you could hear people going, "Oh." So I'm wondering if like they layered it on top? Like they layered
Yes.
the
Oh,
laughter
yeah.
on top?
Yeah. I
Hmm.
I guarantee they do that. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, what don't I think about that? I mean, I here's the deal. I have trouble with male comedians overall, because I really loved Aziz Ansari at one point. He was like one of the only comedians that I really liked, and his Me Too moment was so manipulative and felt so skeezy is not the right word. It felt so, I don't know, manipulative and just like calculated, that I was like, this is terrible. So by and large, I don't really watch male comedians anymore. What struck me about Matt Rife in particular is that I had a I have seen him before come through in my feed related to his crowd work with um, trans folks, non-binary folks. He did one crowd work bit on autism, and they were all pretty good, right? Like did it surprise me that this came out? No, absolutely not. But I was not aware that most of his, like, as I looked through his profile, because I don't follow him, he would just pop up on my FYP. All of the titles of stuff, I was like, oh, I would never watch this guy. Like, this is clearly right within his wheelhouse. So I was like a little surprised that people were surprised, where I'm like, and then his response was even worse, right? To people who is like, here's my official apology in his stories and a link. And then the link was to like durable medical equipment, helmets for people, developmentally disabled individuals who require helmets for safety, like to keep their bodies safe.
Yeah.
Which I cannot, like, is so low. It's like lower than the first thing. You know what I
Right.
mean? Where I'm just like, what the fuck?
It shows his color so incredibly clearly. When I hear jokes like that, like the one about domestic violence, I feel myself getting enraged.
Mm-hmm.
Like my body, I have always my entire life had a very quick trigger,
Mm-hmm.
and that Matt Rife is the kind of man I would get in trouble for pissing off
Mm.
because he doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't give a fuck.
Mm-mm.
It is so self-serving to to intentionally make a harmful joke that you know full well is 100% harmful, is going to piss people off. He knew that the type of audience it was going to piss off, and because he made the joke at the expense of women, it makes it so clear he doesn't give a fuck about us.
Yeah.
He sees our opinions, our feelings as totally invalid.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't see how we could be valuable to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what that not he doesn't see our value in general,
Right.
and he didn't see our value to him. And
Mm.
that's what I've heard over and over again is I was like you said, I was not a fan of his. I had seen his stuff periodically. I didn't follow him, but I have heard people who were really behind him. So many women they followed him. They got him this special. And the
Mm.
way he was like, you know what? I actually don't want a female audience because that's really unserious. And I don't want that. It's like, okay, then you won't have one.
Right.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Like, good. Go and have that. Which is just very, like you said, it's so self-serving, and it's very okay, here's my question. For the people who have not, like, after that joke, have not left his audience, right? And are like, it's just a joke. Like, it's just a joke. He didn't mean any, I mean, he's a comedian. This is what he does. It's funny. Like, we can see why there's humor in it. Yeah, like maybe it wasn't the best for him to do that based on his audience, but like whatever. What would you like, how do you talk to people about that?
Why is it a problem? I mean, for me, anytime you punch down, it's a problem. The way that
Mhm.
he behaved clearly disregards his he doesn't care about women. His joke doesn't care about women. He took a real issue that harms, brutalizes the amount of just like people die, Matt.
Mhm.
People die that way.
Mhm.
Frequently, it's really bad. and you think it's funny. And then he will probably be like, it was just a joke. But when you joke about something, here's what it is. Clarabelle Talks, Claire Brown, she is an incredible comedian. She does skits online. She told me in a conversation that jokes are meant to empower the underpowered, the oppressed, the powerless ones, and they give voice to them. There's a happy ending of some kind in a joke, whether it's empowering or twisted, whatever it is. There was no power at all. He disempowered the woman who had
Right.
a black eye here.
Mm-hmm.
He put his foot on her face.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing funny about kicking someone when they're down. It is
Mm-hmm.
just violent.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did was empower people who turn the other cheek. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. It's not my place to say anything. He only did it once. I mean, give him another shot. He's never been that way to me. Like, all of those things that you hear when men excuse other men from the
Mm-hmm.
violence that they inflict on each other and on women and children and everybody else, and the multiply marginalized.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it look lighthearted,
Yeah.
and it emboldens people to treat it as if it is lighthearted and not take it seriously. So it's not fucking funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's especially when it's presented by someone with so much power, right? Like a white man saying like, "Oh, this is just a joke. Like it's not that big of a deal." It is even worse because of the disempowerment that it inflicts upon the marginalized community, but then also awful in the like additional power it gives the dominant culture, right? Like not only are women is he dehumanizing women? Yeah, I mean, and also if she can't cook, you got to slap her around a little bit, right? Am I right? You know what I mean? Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
not it's so interesting because it makes me wonder if there was a similar issue for straight white men like Matt Rife and someone else made a joke about that, where it would be like another white man made a joke about that, where it's like that's not fun. Like I
Well,
mean,
it is. It
actually
is.
that did happen.
That did happen. That did happen.
I walked
So,
myself right into that segue and didn't even mean to.
yeah. So there is like, I don't follow this guy either, but I have seen him before. He's a plastic surgeon who does like funny jokes. He's a goofball. And he like did a little joke and he's like, point of view, you just made the best jaw, the most incredible, beautiful jaw in your entire career. And then the man gets canceled immediately. And it's insinuating that it's Matt Rife because Matt Rife is suspected to have had jaw surgery, or at least he has the shape of his face has changed dramatically, including he has new teeth, which he admits to getting. But he's like this absolutely chiseled, looks like handsome Squidward.
He does look like handsome Squidward.
And so everyone is tagging Matt Rife and like poking fun. And then Matt Rife made a comment and was like, joking about or talking about somebody's medical history is illegal, just so you know. It's like, can't take a fucking joke.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no,
Yep.
baby crybaby. Can't take a
Yeah.
joke,
Oh,
Matt.
it's not funny. It's not funny,
No.
right? Not funny, right, Matt?
Except
It's
it is because he's in like it. That was actually a funny joke, Matt. Maybe you
well,
should try it.
because it's punching up, right?
Yes.
Like it's and I love that analogy so much because I think it's a good litmus test of what's funny and what's not. Like as you were speaking, I was thinking about how do I teach my kids what's appropriate and what's inappropriate, right? Like adults need to be held to that same standard,
Hmm.
especially because adults know. Kids don't know. Adults know what's fucking appropriate and inappropriate, right? Like we are my partner and I have like the raunchiest sense of humor. Like when people are like, oh, have you seen this one show? But I'm a little hesitant to recommend it to you because it's really raunchy. And I'm like, oh no, it sounds like we would probably like it. Could you just give me the name of the show?
Hmm.
And so when we like with our kids trying to explain to them, like, because that's the dehumanization is what is not funny. The
Hmm.
jokes at the expense of other people, that's not our sense of humor. Those are two very different things. And we teach our kids appropriately. They make fart jokes at the table. That's fine. don't do it with your, don't do it at a restaurant and embarrass your grandparents, but like absolutely at our table, that's fine. But if you're making fun of another kid for the way they look or the way they, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, the next sentence out of your mouth better be that when that kid said that to that kid, you told them to shut the fuck up. Because if
Right.
it's not and you were laughing with them, we're going to be having a very different conversation. And they know, right? So it's adults have to be held to the same standard. This is not okay for you to say that. That's not funny.
Yeah. Like I'd rather have an absolute cursing mouth. Like I don't think it's offensive to curse and swear and say vulgar things, but I totally think it is like you can't hurt but you can't hurt somebody on purpose. You can't
Yes.
punch down.
You
It is
can't punch
there
down.
and you found a clip that talks about like you can joke about domestic violence. You can
Mhm.
joke about racism. I saw an incredible set by uh, a Muslim comedian and talking about his mother and the racism that his mother faced. And it was this incredible set. And then at the end, he makes a joke about at the expense of the people who harmed his mother.
Yes.
And it was
100%.
so funny and so heartfelt.
Was it the
And
Solo one on HBO?
maybe,
I got to see it. It was like really intimate.
oh, no. Well,
Oh,
no,
okay.
it was like a regular
Anyway.
set, but I'll link it in the show notes. It was really
Amazing.
good.
But it's a situation of, yeah, you can't take advantage of other people. That's mean. That's what I teach my kids is bullying. They're in the direct opposite of that. This came across my FYP, which I thought was beautiful. And I'm going to play it. It's a little bit lengthy, but it's 2 minutes. But it's worth watching to see the joke and to see the progression of the joke.
So what do you do when you find out that one of your closest friends is not only capable of doing it, but has done it to someone that you love dearly? I didn't handle it well. I'm still not handling it that well, to be honest with you. It's a tough thing to process. It's a hard thing to come to terms with. He was one of my closest friends. My initial reaction wasn't a fucking strong one. It was one of, toxic masculinity, one of violence. The caveman in my brain was like, shall I take over? And I was like, 100%. If there was ever a time to hunt or gather, it's fucking now. All I wanted to do was just find him and just pin him down and put his head on the side of the car and just stamp on his head repeatedly until he was dead. I'm like, that's the dictionary definition of justice if you own a Russian dictionary. And I stood up and I was like, I'm going to go beat him up. And she was like, for fuck's sake. No, you're not. Because if you beat him up, all you do is you make him the victim. And I was like, I don't know what to do with all of this anger. And she was like, now you know how I feel. And I was like, oh, I'll just get back into my place. I'll be here when you need me. Do you know the Wi-Fi? Doesn't matter. She let me confront him. I was allowed to do that. I wasn't going to change my opinion of him, but yeah, I wanted to hear what he had to say for himself. I wanted to hear the words of a man I thought I knew. And I sat him down and I stared in his eyes the entire time during the confrontation. I didn't break eye contact at any point. It was a lot like a game of hide and seek. Looked dead in his eyes, I accused him, and he admitted it. He fucking admitted it. Oh, he made his excuses. Oh, man, it was an accident. I didn't mean to. I was drunk. It won't happen again. Just bad me up this once. I sort of removed myself from the situation, and then I had to be the bearer of bad news to the rest of my guy friends. Let them know that they were friends with a fucking beast. They reacted with the same level of maturity that I did. They were like, we should beat the shit out of him. And I was like, we can't beat the shit out of him. Apparently, if we beat the shit out of him, he becomes the victim. And they were like, we don't know what to do with all this anger. And I was like, now you know how women feel. And they were like, fuck, that's deep. And I was like, I know, I thought of it myself.
Flawless.
Okay, why do you think this works?
Why do I think it works? I think it works because it is self-aware. I think that he takes accountability for his stuff, right? Like he takes responsibility. My therapist is always talking about like, okay, in this situation with your partner, you can only take responsibility. You can only own your stuff, right? You can't own their stuff. In this joke, he owns his own stuff. He owns his poor reaction. He knows why it's a poor reaction. He knows why it's socially wired into his brain to react that way. And he knows that it's toxic. And he listens to his friend who is the victim, right? And then he takes that information and he passes it on to other people that need to hear the same message. And it wasn't lost on me that he didn't waver in that way of like, well, he was a close friend. So I kind of like, I mean, clearly we wouldn't be hearing about it if he had. But I feel like a lot of men get put in that situation where they're like, I mean, but he's not really like that. And it's like, no, like that is the core of who he is, of who that assaulter is, because that is who they are when no one is watching.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so the fact that I think it works because it's self-aware, and then it's self-deprecating when he takes that information and they're like, whoa, his friends are like, that's so deep. And he's like, yeah, I know. I came up with it myself. I thought about it because I'm enlightened. Right. Like that's why it's funny.
Yeah. I really liked that ending where
Mhm.
it's a critique to me on what woke men do.
Yes. Yep.
Look
Yep.
how enlightened I am. Look, I'm so great. I've
Mhm.
learned so much. I'm a really good ally.
Mhm.
And I think within the joke, he comes to I think that's really interesting because he does not pat himself on the back for having that reaction, which is better than a lot of men would have. I want to beat the shit out of my friend. I believe you immediately.
Mhm.
I believe you immediately. I am here to take action and support you. What he critiques himself on is that he thought that he had the best he had the best idea of how to support her.
Yep.
He takes the step back, he self-reflects. He then calls his friend out directly. He
Mhm.
talks to his friends about it. He teaches them something new and then goes back to the beginning, which is isn't it so funny that men always think they have the best ideas?
Yes.
It was flawless. I loved it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep. Start to finish.
But it is so. Here's I saw another domestic violence sexual assault joke today, and it was like super goofy music of someone like walking down the street like do 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 do, like no care in the world, and it was someone walking away, and it was like leftist men going to hang out with their friend who's a rapist. Like it was something along the lines of like how a lot of progressive men will just completely ignore the fact that their friends are they're a feminist until it's gonna kind of mess up their social circle.
Mhm.
And it's called Missing Step. Have you heard that? Missing Stair?
No.
Okay, so there's this beautiful song that came out called The Missing Stair. I'm doing the ADHD brain thing now.
Totally. I mean,
All
I'm
the
with you. I'm
threads.
Googling it now. Go.
So the missing stair, it is when you warn people, oh, there's a missing stair. Don't watch your step, watch your step. But you don't fix the fucking stair. And it's the network often of women or marginalized people who will quietly warn other people about the missing stair. And everybody knows it's an open secret. The old trope of like the creepy uncle or
Yeah.
the person you don't stay at a room with that teacher alone because that's not a good idea. But you don't fire the teacher and you don't stop inviting the uncle to the family gatherings, and you don't tell your friend. You just say, "Oh, you probably didn't do it. I don't know. I don't want to ask too many questions. It's not really my place." And I think jokes like this, I like the Daniel Sloss jokes because it blows up that idea. And I hate Matt Rife jokes because it normalizes it's okay. It's not my place. It's actually kind of funny.
Right. Like, isn't it funny tongue in cheek? And I know that we've talked about this before on the podcast, but if any of our listeners have not seen the movie Promising Young Woman, right? Like, this is kind of the whole basis of that movie. Trigger warning, content warnings, right? Like, be informed about it before you watch it, but is an incredible commentary on this same phenomenon of the missing state. Like, that's beautiful. That's like a beautiful analogy to, because we all know people like that, and we all know situations that are like that, and it's not okay, right? Like, where it's like, okay, but why does everybody know this and nothing's being said, or why do you still hang out with them? It's so demeaning and the most dangerous, right? Like, that's the most dangerous scenario that you could walk into unknowingly, right? An outsider.
Yeah. And I feel incredibly strongly about cutting out people in your social circle who are abusers.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, that has ended a lot of relationships because I have directly confronted people on that. Why do you keep that person in your social circle? Or finding out after the fact, years after the fact. There was one guy I had no idea had assaulted a friend of mine, and then I found out years later that it had happened, and a lot of people knew, and they kept having this guy around. I had since the assault had happened, and I had no idea, I had set
Yeah.
this guy up with friends. Like,
Oh, fuck.
had I known, I would not have done that, and I would not have put people in danger. I didn't know I was in danger.
Right.
Like, I would never willingly put a friend of mine in danger like that, and I felt so betrayed.
Yeah.
And I just cannot get over how much I like the idea of like, oh no, I believed you, and then I trusted your experience of it and your knowledge of it, and then I backed you up.
I backed you up in the way that you needed to be backed up. Right. I listened to the feedback that you had based on your experience and why that's not the solution. And I was self-reflected. Yeah, absolutely. Literally the polar opposite. I'm really interested to watch the rest of that special. According to that TikTok, it's free. You can watch it on his website, on Daniel Sloss's website. I would love to see what his other material looks like.
Yeah, I don't have any context for him. That's the first
same.
I've ever seen it. It's great.
It's a great intro, Daniel Sloss. Great job. Great first impression.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Here now, maybe I don't know. Here's one thing that I have struggled with, because I've been him before. I have a really hard time if I've heard about something harmful that's happened to a friend, not getting really mad at the injustice of it. I don't know. I have totally made the wrong choices before, and like supported somebody in a way that I thought was right because I was so angry for them. How do we, I think that we have a lot of people who listen to us who wonder, how can we help our friends? Like, my friend comes to me and is like, I'm having a really hard time in my relationship, and I'm feeling ignored and neglected, and I bring these things up, and I'm dismissed or put down, or I'm told these things about me, and I'm ungrateful. How do you think we can help other people in those situations?
I think the place that I start, like as a friend or as someone who is in that person's circle of influence, like if they're coming to me looking for support, I ask them, like, what kind of support can I give you? I'll do whatever kind of flavor of support that you want. Do you want to vent? Do you need problem solving? Do you want me to sit here and just hold space for you to talk about it and empathize? Do you want me to, would you rather do it in person? Do you want me to stay here? Like, do you want me to text you? Do you want to call me? Like, what do you need in this moment right now? Right. And because I think some people will say, I don't know, or initially at the beginning say, you know what, I don't know. And that's okay. But encouraging them to think about what would feel best. Sometimes it's a hug, right? Right now in this moment, I just need a hug because I haven't been hugged in 2 months, right? So I think asking them, and then I think listening to them and executing on that also. I think in this case, especially like with Daniel Sloss is the example. When he gets angry and and gets ready to well, I'm going to go beat the shit out of him. Not only would that make the perpetrator the victim, but it also prioritizes his anger, like his reaction to what has happened to his friend. And so it's fine to feel angry. It's fine to feel frustrated and have your feelings. Deal with those on the side, right? Like almost like separate that and be like, okay, that's mine, right? The thing of like taking responsibility for what's yours. That's mine. I'm going to deal with that later. Right now, they're in crisis in front of me, so I'm going to prioritize that first, and then I'll deal with this anger afterwards.
That's one that I really struggle with, tamping down my own reaction,
yeah.
my own projection and response.
Well, and that's the other thing too, because I think that there is an element, especially when we're talking about domestic violence or intimate partner violence or sexual assault, where it's also okay to express to that person, I'm really pissed. Like, it's okay to express to the victim, that makes me so angry, right?
Mm.
Like, you can express how pissed you are, because that is also helpful for the victim, right? Because that validates how the victim, like, yes, what you said is real. I believe you, right? All of these things. You just can't make it, like you said, the reaction so overpowering that it's theirs now to deal with, that you're making them
Mhm.
manage your emotions.
That, yeah. Like you're
It's
protecting
a fine
them.
balance, right?
Oh yeah, turning and being like, oh, I wish I could protect you. Like when you
Yes.
make them, when you make them do emotional labor for you.
Right.
That makes sense. And anger is emotional labor, or anger is an emotion. So that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Lots of notes in the show
So many
notes.
notes. Oh, absolutely.
Tons of links and all that stuff. Check out the videos. Thanks for Crystal, you found that good joke. I really love it.
The
Thank you
good
for
joke,
sharing
the
it.
good one. Absolutely. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Walking on eggshells, walking away. Always so careful with the words I choose to say. Here in the lamplight, everything glows, blurring the lines between the lies and what I know. So we whisper, so we war, so we won't burn down the house where we go. There's a monster hidden there. Tell me why won't we repair the missing stair?
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Time to Lean. Your questions and stories are what keep us going, so keep those voicemails and messages coming.
Until our next episode, remember that you can always find us on social media and, of course, in your podcast feed. You can also subscribe for $5 a month on Spotify for uninterrupted episodes and bonus content.
We're so grateful for your support. See you next time.